Well, guys, the Denver Broncos fell short tonight on Thursday Night Football, 34-27 against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Broncos just shot themselves in the foot. That's really what it came down to. They scored 3 consecutive touchdowns to open up this game. In the first half, Denver had 236 yards of total offense, and then in the second half, non-existent. I mean, there was a graphic put up. They only had 55 yards. They ended up adding in a couple more, but still, just a bad second half. The resiliency of the Chargers just was too much for the Broncos, who now go to 9-6. And this was the worst case scenario for the Broncos. If they had won this, they would have been guaranteed to go to the playoffs. They would have canceled out that tiebreaker against the Chargers, but they didn't. Now they don't have that tiebreaker. So Denver, they're going to fall to the 7th seed in the playoffs, which means traveling to Orchard Park in Buffalo, which is going to be extremely difficult if that stands. Of course, if the Broncos finish as the 7th seed, I don't think anybody's going to complain in the sense that they're making the playoffs. First winning season since 2016. Now, obviously, coming into this, being with a record of 9-5, finishing off as the 7th seed would have been bad. But just overall, the Broncos were not supposed to be where they're at. So let's just get that out of the way before we get into the rest of this video. So the Broncos, the reason why they lost this game, momentum just completely swung in the Chargers' favor. That's what it came down to. The first half, the Chargers were up 21 to 15 points. And then the second half, they only scored 6 points. They kicked 2 field goals, one, of course, in the third, and then they had 55-yarder at the end of the fourth quarter. The Broncos, it seems like they got a little bit complacent. I thought they had an opportunity to just completely put away the Chargers, and they didn't. And all of a sudden, a couple of bad plays led to a couple of bad plays, and Justin Herbert ended up just being the difference. 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, adds in 28 with his legs, had that 18-yard run, which, of course, was just devastating. If that ended up being picked up by this Broncos defense, who knows how this game unfolds, but that ends up leading to a touchdown because Gus Edwards following that would have a 43-yard run, and then Herbert would just sort of shovel pass it forward, a little flick it for the tutty, of course, which ended up going to Hassan Haskins. And that play to Darius Davis, I mean, I would say probably maybe 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this league can make that throw that Herbert did, and he was on a bad ankle too. So Denver, they had a chance to control their own destiny. They fumbled, and now they're going to have to travel to Cincinnati in a must-win game. If the Broncos do lose that game, I mean, okay, well, the Bengals, they win it. Well, the Broncos can still beat the Chiefs and make the playoffs. Kansas City, if you're a Broncos fan, you're rooting for Kansas City to win their next 2 games because then they're going to sit everyone against Denver. If Kansas City loses one of those 2, they're going to be, of course, traveling to Denver and playing everyone. And that's a bad scenario because now you have to beat the Bengals with Joe Burrow, who is putting up the best numbers of his career. Jamar Chase is putting up unbelievable numbers, triple crown more than likely coming soon. T. Higgins, Chase Brown, defense sucks, I get that, but do you want to get into a shootout right now with the Bengals? I don't care how good the Broncos defense has been. Are they going to be able to shut down Burrow? Are they going to be able to hold them to, let's say, 24 points? I think the Broncos, they got 27 tonight. I think that's a sweet spot. I know they can get that, but 30 plus. But the Broncos, the bigger picture here is they only have 1 win this season against a team with a winning record, and that's the Bucks, which was in week 3, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that was a long time ago. Very, very, it was in week 3, 26-7. Since then, they have lost to the Chargers. They've lost to the Ravens, the Chiefs, which albeit they should have won that game. And, of course, they just lost to the Chargers again. So the Broncos, they've beaten up on bad teams. I'm not taking anything away from them. I think they're a hell of a team. I love their defense. Of course, Bo Nix is putting together a Rookie of the Year type of season. He's proven everyone wrong. But this team just, man, they've got to be better. They had a chance to just make a statement, to go to Los Angeles, to win that game, go to the playoffs. You're now 10-5, man. Everything would have looked so promising. You don't got to worry about the Bengals because you're going to the playoffs. They beat you. That's cool. They're still not finishing over you, but they didn't. And now I think the Broncos are in not panic mode, but I do think they're in some trouble. I don't think they're in serious trouble, but I do think they're in some trouble, and I am nervous about the rest of the season. I don't know how you cannot be with having to go to Cincinnati and face Burrow and then against the Chiefs. And I don't think the Chiefs are beating both the Texans and the Steelers. We're talking about Saturday to Wednesday going to Pittsburgh on Christmas. I don't think the Chiefs are winning that game. Their offensive line's so horrific. They got to go against Highsmith. They've got to go up against Watt and Mike Tomlin. I mean, you talk about Lamar Jackson. We know his struggles against the, of course, Steelers, just because if it's suffocating defense, Mahomes is going to have the same problems too. So, and Pickens might play too. He's out this game, but he might be good to go Wednesday. Who knows? So, it's just a bad thing. But at the end of the day, the Broncos still are 9-6. I don't think anybody could have complained to go be going into, of course, week 17 with that record. Still have an opportunity to win one of your next two, which guarantees you a playoff spot. The seventh seed, that's the issue, is you're going to take on the Bills or the Chiefs in the first round because the Chargers got this game and they have the tiebreaker and they've got the Patriots and Raiders next. They're going to be more than likely taking on whether it be the Steelers or the Texans, just two significantly easier opponents. Not easy opponents, but easier. The Broncos, I don't think they'd even have a chance to beat the Bills in Buffalo. Even the biggest diehard Broncos fan would probably admit that too. So that was the significance of this game. But at the end of the day, the Broncos lost. It is what it is. They've got to move on to the next one. And it wasn't like the Chargers were incredible in this game. I mean, again, the Broncos got off they scored 21 points, 3 straight touchdowns. Defensively, they forced a 3-and-out to start this game. Then they scored a touchdown. Then the Chargers got some points on the board. But still, second half, just a non-existent offense. If you look at the numbers, 110 rushing yards, looking at 263 passing yards by Mo Nix, you're probably thinking the Broncos, they win this game, especially because of those 3 touchdowns, and you're thinking that they're going to kick some field goals. The defense is going to show up. Herbert's on that bad ankle. You'll be fine, but no, they just didn't. And you just got to play mistake-free football. Sacks sort of were an issue, only 2, but still backing you up into second and long, third and long. The Broncos, they don't, not to say they don't have an explosive offense. I mean, Marvin Mims should have had a touchdown. He was missed by Bo Nix in a nice little double move. But it comes down to a couple of plays. Football comes down to a couple of plays, and the Broncos, man, like I said, man, they've got to just be better against these top teams. Not to say they haven't played them well, because both Chargers games were one possession. The Chiefs game, they should have won that. They had a block kick. The Ravens game was the one game this year that got away from Baltimore, but going back to Pittsburgh, they lost that one score. Seattle, they lost that by one score. So they'll be fine. Bo Nix, man, he's a hell of a football player. I have a lot of belief in him. He's a rookie too. Sean Payton's second year. The Broncos have like $80 million in dead cap space because of Russ. So this team's only on the rise. They don't want to overreact. But in terms of the next 2 games, you're lying to yourself if you're not worried. You're absolutely lying to yourself. The Broncos are a better team than the Bengals, more complete. But Joe Burrow is just having an historic season, man. He's been so good. I mean, the official Bengals YouTube channel tweeted out for a reason following this Denver loss. They will be ready for that game. Best case is the Chiefs win their next 2, like I said, and then they don't even have to play their starters against the Broncos, because you don't want the season to result in missing the playoffs. This was the season that Broncos fans have been waiting for since Peyton Manning retired. Everything was on the rise. Elite defense, Bo Nix, Sean Payton, all this salary cap. I mean, it would just be an absolute collapse for the Broncos to fall short here. Even if they do fall short, there's still a lot of optimism going to next season. But just given where they were at, man, this team, they've got to finish the job and just give themselves a chance in the playoffs and gain that experience. And the Bills defense, it hasn't played well at all, to say the least, against teams with winning records. So the Broncos have a winning record. They will finish with a winning record. So not to say they don't have a chance, but I mean, it's not where you want to be.